Every story has an end, but some endings are beginnings in disguise. As we conclude our series today, remember, the mimic story doesn't have to end here. Perhaps it could even start with you. I'm Shelby.
And I'm Kacie.
And this is Chill Seeker.
Okay, Shelby, I don't want it to start with me. That sounds creepy.
Exactly.
And what do you have for me this week? I know it's going to be the scariest episode of this whole series because you love doing that to me. So what do we got?
So we're almost done. I mean, this is the last episode in this series, and I feel like we've been on this for so long. So I'm sure that you're ready to move on and stop having nightmares about crawlers. But I've had so much fun, and you're right. This is going to be the scariest episode. Like, I saved all the best parts for last. These stories will blow your mind. So
I'm ready.
Again, this is the last part 7 of our Mimic series. So if you haven't listened to the other ones, you need to go back or else this is not going to make any sense. I mean, they're still creepy stories. So if you're just into a story time, I guess you could keep listening, but I highly recommend going back to part 1 and starting there. But if you have made it this far, you'll know exactly where we left off. But first, let's start with a quote from a commenter on the Crawler Sightings subreddit. Once you hear their call, they are already inside your mind. Okay, let's go. So we left off where our hero or narrator had just shot the creature and was chasing down after it into the ravine. He was expecting to find a body, blood, or anything really, any evidence that this creature was there, that it had been shot, that it was trying to rampage through the woods and get away. But there was absolutely nothing. No tracks, no blood, no broken bushes or branches, just the trees staring back at him. They debated whether to stay or to leave. Against his better judgment, the others convinced him to stay, which is insane. I mean, Kacie, can you imagine, like, you've just sighted a crawler, he shot it, it ran away, and now they're like, but we can just stay out the night, like, it's gonna be fine.
Like, absolutely not. Like, no, first of all, I would have been running from the moment that I saw the crawler. Like, let's keep it 100. I'm not sticking around to see what it's gonna do, especially after I shot at it. Are you kidding me? What?
Yeah, I mean, they were all sure that he had hit it. So basically what their reasoning is like, oh, well, you definitely killed it. Like, let's just wait till it's light out and we can either go look for it, try to find the body, or just get out of here. Like, it's fine. That's what they thought, is that he definitely killed it. Because they saw it. He shot it in the chest, according to this story. So still, I mean, have you ever seen like a horror movie? Double tap, like they didn't actually kill it, obviously, right? I mean, unless you saw it die right there.
I've seen Scream enough times to know.
Yeah, so obviously this seems crazy to me, but I guess, you know, if you've ever met a young man who thinks he's invincible, or if you are a young man who thinks they're invincible, then I guess you might understand a little better than I do. So our witness slept uneasily inside his Jeep. So everyone else was still in their tents, but he's like, hell no, I'm not going to get back in a tent and wait for this thing to come back. I'm going to lock myself in the Jeep. Yeah, so he's in the Jeep sleeping, clutching his rifle, which also is something I guess if you're stuck there, I would do. But let's be real, I would just drive the hell out of there
Exactly. Like, what's the point of staying? Like, that's the part that is
the
not
peer
really
pressure
making
from
sense.
his friends. Like, I mean, honestly, when you hear real stories from people, like true stories about random animal encounters or whatever, even if it's not a crawler, you might be shocked at the things that people do that seem insane, right? I mean,
true.
It's just, I just heard a story of a young man who died because he wanted to to take a challenge and swim across a crocodile or alligator infested river. I forget exactly where this was. I think it was in South America, against his better judgment and against, the judgment of his friends who tried to stop him. But he was like, you know what, I can do it. And then of course he got eaten by one. But like, again, like you can't make this shit up. It's like, okay.
That's like the hippo guy that was like, thought he was best friends with a hippo and then it ate him.
I didn't hear about that. Jesus.
Yeah.
Hippos are terrifying.
They are. And the fact that people will like swim in waters with hippos, they like almost always get eaten. Like we'll have to do an episode on that.
See, but like I believe this story insofar as like this obviously happens. People do this kind of. People are like, okay, dangerous predator around. Like, I guess we'll just stay here. I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, no, get out.
Yeah, people are
But
nuts.
anyway, people are nuts. So he's laying in the Jeep. He has his rifle, and all of a sudden he stirs awake, seemingly for no reason. He's like looking around, like, why did I just wake up? But he sat up, looks out the window, and of course, he sees it again. Duh, right? Of course it came back. Of course it wasn't dead. So.
Did he honk at it?
He honks at it, yes.
That's what I would have done. I would have honked at it and then immediately tried to run it over.
This is the first time you and this guy have been on the same page. Okay.
It is.
So, quote, that's when I got a side view of the creature staring at my friend's tent from behind a stump.
Oh, yeah. My God.
So he slams on the horn and the headlights lit up the clearing. But once again, this thing just vanished into the woods without a trace. That was it. So he went and woke up his friends. They packed up immediately and hightailed it out of there. Finally, much after they should have already. But anyway, came back, he remembered one final chilling detail.
What?
When it was crawling out of the ferns, I noticed it kept its face angled down, as if to expose as little light as possible to its eyes.
Oh.
I'm not sure if this was intentional or if it was aware of its eye shine. You know how animals have eyes that shine back at you in the dark, right? When it's exposed to light. And so, yeah, he's thinking that it was maybe aware of this.
Wow. I mean, it would be a smart creature to be aware of that.
Yeah, he says whatever it was smart and it was deliberate and it had been hunting them slowly and patiently the entire night. Also, when asked, he addresses the possibility that he could have just mistooken the animal. He says that he spent literal hours looking at pictures of bears and wolves and other animals with mange and trying to compare them to what he saw. And after all of this research, he is absolutely convinced that what he saw was not an animal with any kind of disease. And he says it was, quote, much closer to a crawler or stickman from Native American lore. And you'll remember stickman from, I think, 2 episodes ago. And I'm still not convinced that stickmen and crawlers aren't just one and the same, 2 different names for the same legend or creature.
I agree.
Anyway, as I said earlier, I also live on the west coast of Washington, and I just recently moved to a house on a 30-acre property, entirely covered in dense forest. And I have to say, it feels like the perfect place for something pale and hungry to be hiding. I know we've gone over this whole, series of how me freaking myself out, sitting in my house, like going outside, like what's out there. But yeah, also, just another reason, like, just for Jesus.
For the listeners, Shelby and I were just talking about me coming to visit her in a couple weeks. So thanks for making me feel terrified about going to your house.
I mean, I promise it's more beautiful than scary, but it's also kind of scary. I mean, even we see like huge like bear scratches on trees like right outside. Ooh. And hear coyotes every night. Like we're out here. So I mean, who's to say there's not a crawler?
Now when I come to see you, I'm just gonna start crawling.
Just like all fours up the stairs in the middle of the night. Like, Jesus Christ.
Jesse might shoot me.
I was literally going to say, like, with all my talk of crawlers, I feel like he'd be ready. And if I was like, crawler, he might shoot. So let's be careful.
Yes.
Oh my God. It reminds me of the time that my dad actually almost shot my older brother.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. Crazy story. Okay, so this was when my parents were living, I was a little kid at this time, living in North Bend in a house on the river in North Bend in Washington State. And my older brother was not living at home at all. He was in college and he was staying at his mom's house. And he wasn't supposed to be staying at my parents' house at all. So he wasn't supposed to be there, no plans to come stay with them, but he broke in the middle of the night at like 3 a.m. because he was at a party and he was closer to there than going back all the way. And he just wanted to like basically pass out there and wake up the next morning, which I mean, of course would have been fine if they had known that he was coming. But my mom wakes up and she's like, there's a man in the house, like someone's in the house. And my dad literally gets the gun, goes down the stairs and is like, hands up or whatever the fuck he said. And Paul, my brother, was like, oh my God, it's me. But he like was about to shoot him.
That is terrifying.
I'm so glad he didn't.
Well, yeah. I'm glad that your dad doesn't have a quick trigger finger. Like, geez. Right? I mean, but, that's terrifying.
Don't pretend to be a crawler here.
Okay, I won't. I take it all back.
Okay. So, next, we're moving on from the West Coast to an area in the United States that we haven't covered yet. We're going to what I'm calling the High Rockies, a northern wilderness region, which includes Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Utah, and Colorado, where there's also been a disturbing wave of crawler sightings that are just too consistent to ignore. These states are full of jagged mountain ranges, vast stretches of forest, and remote, unlit roads. Basically, a cryptid's dream. In Montana, a user on Reddit's r/crawler sightings shared a chilling personal story about encountering a clammy, long-limbed humanoid deep in the woods, one that tracked them silently from tree to tree. Then in Colorado, cryptid website Phantoms and Monsters published a report of 2 friends who saw a pale crawler hunched over roadkill outside Alamusa. Describing the thing's unearthly scream before it bolted into the night. So yeah, these things, crawlers, have also been seen eating roadkill. And in Idaho, a thread on r/Idaho compiled multiple sightings, including one witness who claimed they locked eyes with a white skeletal figure with pitch black eyes just beyond the tree line. This story I'm bringing you next, before we leave the United States entirely, takes place deep in Utah, in the heart of the Uinta Mountains. It was posted by a now-deleted Reddit account in the Crawler Sightings subreddit by a young man who was just a boy when the incident happened. It was late September in the high Uinta Mountains of northeastern Utah, a place where the forest seems older than memory, where pine needles blanket the earth in silence, and the ridgelines carve harsh silhouettes against a bruised, fading sky. The air was crisp with the bite of oncoming cold, and every breath hung visible in the dimming light. Up here, there's no ambient noise, no highway in the distance, just the crunch of your boots, the rustle of branches, and the weight of the wilderness pressing in on all sides. A 15-year-old boy was hiking beside his grandfather, a seasoned conservation officer and biologist, the kind of man who doesn't scare easy. He'd relocated moose, darted black bears, managed wildfires, and walked this terrain for decades. He didn't believe in ghost stories or cryptids, but that night, something in the woods was about to shatter both their understandings of what nature was capable of. They were tracking a wounded mule deer, a blood trail left by another hunter earlier that afternoon. The trail was hard to follow, winding through steep terrain and fields of tangled deadfall, fallen trees like broken bones jutting out in all directions. The sun had already disappeared, and a heavy twilight clung to the trees, turning everything a shade too dark too quickly. And then came the first sound, a cry from somewhere ahead. At first, it could have been mistaken for a coyote, but as it stretched on, it twisted.
Twisted?
Louder, sharper, more human sounding than animal. A scream that climbed in pitch until it became something alien, something wrong. It echoed off the trees like it didn't just come from one direction, but from all around them. Then, a chittering followed. Not random, but deliberate. Rhythmic, like a language without words. I'm thinking of the aliens and signs that made like the weird, like clicking sounds, chittering. I don't know. I mean, this is what the person described experiencing. So you can only imagine what that might sound like, but it's terrifying.
I've never actually seen Signs.
It's such a good movie.
You have to watch it together.
It's a classic. I love it. So they froze. The boy's heart was pounding. He looked to his grandfather, expecting that familiar look of calm, of control. But this time, there was only confusion on his face. He swept his maglite flashlight over the trees, but the shadows were thick and the silence was thicker. The forest had now gone dead quiet. Not just empty, but hollow, like it was holding its breath. They pressed on, both uneasy now. That's when the sound returned. Thumping, scraping. Then they heard something move between the trees, just ahead. And there it was. Half crouched behind a pale-barked aspen stood a figure. Not animal, not quite human. It was tall, even well hunched, its limbs impossibly long and wrapped tight around the tree. Its skin was nearly the same ghostly white as the trunk behind it, making it almost invisible until it moved. Its face wasn't right, sunken and hollow. Its eyes caught the gleam of the flashlight and glinted back, flat and depthless like glass marbles. The boy couldn't breathe. He shut his eyes tight, willing himself to be anywhere else. When he opened them, it was gone, slipped off with inhuman speed, crashing deeper and deeper into the trees. His grandfather staggered backwards, rifle now raised. A man who had always been the calm in the storm was now visibly shaken. That wasn't a deer, not a bear either. Couldn't have been a cougar. Couldn't have been. It stood upright. It had arms. He muttered to himself as they walked back. They didn't speak again until they made it back to the main trail. The boy cried. His grandfather, still clutching the now loaded muzzleloader, walked in silence, stunned. That night, back at the camp, no one mocked the boy's fear. The others were kind and gentle, almost too gentle, like they knew. Like something in the grandfather's expression told them that what they had seen was real, and it was disturbing. The next morning, the deer was found. Well, what was left of it. It was half-eaten, probably scavenged by coyotes, or maybe something else. The boy knew that he would never look at the forest the same again. After posting that story, the original poster returned with a follow-up comment. And honestly, it just made the whole encounter even more disturbing. He wrote that, even though the creature appeared hunched over, it seemed tall. They described its body as bony and emaciated, like it hadn't eaten in weeks, or like it was sick, not in a natural way, but in a way that just felt wrong. There were no visible ears, no lips, and no pigment in its cheeks. Just a small mouth set into a pale, unfamiliar face that looked almost like it had been drained of all life. He added that its neck seemed much longer than a human's, and you could see the tendons moving tight beneath the skin. He notes that its sunken eyes gave off that eerie tapetum lucidum reflection, the retinal layer animals have that makes their eyes flash back in the dark, the eye shine that we talked about. Humans don't have that, and this thing did. And the most unsettling part is that this wasn't some wide-eyed kid having a panic attack. This person had worked as a veterinary technician, seen animals crushed by cars, eaten alive by parasites and mange, they said, and opened up for necropsies. He'd seen real horror. And still, this thing shook them for their entire life up to this point. He said it was like every horrifying trait of a sick or dying animal put together, balled into one disturbing being. It looked wrong, like something that shouldn't exist, let alone be alive and standing right there in front of them. So, while there are countless other encounters I could share with you from all around America, crawlers don't seem to be confined to our borders. Globally, while North America remains the crawler capital, there are also a surprising number of crawler-like sightings in Australia, which is kind of known in paranormal communities as another spot where they live. I'm going to tell you the story of a horrifying encounter by an Australian woman who has seemingly been stalked by a pale crawler her entire life.
What? Her entire life? Yeah. Also, I feel like Australia has the scariest shit, like as far as like animals go.
Yeah, have you seen those spiders?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Totally. Like, of course there are crawlers in Australia.
Of course.
So, this story was posted in the subreddit Crawler Sightings 4 years ago with the title, "I don't sleep with the curtains open because of crawlers." The writer of the story tells us why she's a grown woman now and still can't sleep at night with the curtains open. When she moved into her current house, she even installed dual curtain rods, thick blackout curtains layered over privacy shears, just to make sure that even when one set is open, no one could look inside. And after hearing what she's been through, I certainly can't blame her. She says she has seen something not just once, but 4 different times in 4 different places, something she calls a crawler. She doesn't know if it was the same one every time, but she says, quote, I still feel like they were the same creature, or at least like they knew me.
Maybe it's just trying to be her friend. Everybody needs a friend.
After the story. Okay. The first encounter happened when she was 4 or 5 years old. Her family lived in an old-style flood house, technically 2 stories tall, with the living space upstairs and the garage and the laundry underneath. They were one of the only houses in a new cul-de-sac, surrounded by light rainforest and only about 500 meters away from the ocean, though you couldn't see or hear the waves from the house. One night, she woke up, a common thing for her since she was always a light sleeper, but this time her curtains were open. She describes looking towards her window and seeing it. Even though her bedroom was on the 2nd floor, there it was, a pale, towering figure easily 2 meters tall, hanging off the roof.
Oh.
Gripping the frame of her window.
Santa? Oh my god.
She couldn't see its face, but somehow she knew it was staring directly at her. It's been almost 2 decades since I saw it, she says, but I can still remember the intense fear that I felt. It took every ounce of courage she had to get up and walk to her parents' room, where she eventually fell back asleep. They told her, of course, that it was just a dream, just a terrible nightmare. But that wouldn't be the last time she saw it. The next time she did, she was about 7 years old, living in a different town about a 16-hour drive away from her first house. This new house was a single-story home, still near the coast, but even more isolated. No neighbors, just open land and sky. She woke up to the sound of something banging against their metal fence. The kind of tall, corrugated metal fence that is almost impossible to climb because it's just smooth, like there's nothing to grip onto. At first, she thought it must have been birds landing on it, but the noise just kept going. So, when she finally turned towards the window, she could just make out the figure, hunched down but still massive, crouching right outside. This time, she didn't dare leave her room. Her parents' bedroom was on the far side of the house, and she would have had to pass way too many uncovered windows to get there. She stayed frozen in bed and somehow eventually fell asleep. In the morning, once again, her parents brushed it off as another terrible dream. But from then on, she made sure her blinds were always closed at night. The third time she saw the creature, she was 9 years old, spending the night at a new friend's house, a girl she calls Kacie. And up to this point, I mean, we all could have just said it's probably a nightmare, a recurring dream. A lot of kids have them and nothing real about it, right? But this experience changes all that.
And it's like every 2 years, just about?
Well, so far she, was 4 or 5. Then she saw it when she's 7.
Okay.
Now she is 9. So about every 2 years so far. All right, she's staying over at her friend's house, a girl named Kacie, or Kacie for the purpose of this story, and everything about the night was normal until she woke up to the sound of Kacie crying.
Kacies do love to cry.
Oh, you poor thing. I love you.
I love you.
When she sat up and asked what was wrong, Kacie pointed towards the window. There, hunched against the glass, was the creature again. Only this time illuminated by the soft glow of a nightlight in Kacie's room. It was almost completely white, crusty, and dry-looking.
Ew.
With black, gaping eyes and a black, gaping mouth.
Gaping?
More gaping holes.
But they're dry
and
this
crusty.
time. And crusty.
Yeah, like it needs some lotion.
Throw some Vaseline on that bitch.
The 2 girls ran, crying to Kacie's mom. When she turned on the outside lights, she tried to convince them they were just seeing the outline of a gum tree outside. But the girls insisted the thing we saw was right against the window, not several meters away like the tree. Later, when Kacie stayed over at the poster's house, something even stranger happened. The next morning, Kacie was gone. She just woke up and her friend wasn't there anymore. Her parents explained that Kacie had woken up crying in the night and begging to go home, so her parents had come and picked her up. At school the following Monday, Kacie told her why. She had seen the tall skin monster, as she said, crawling through the trees at the back of the property. Yeah. After that, Kacie never came back to her house again.
My girl,
and not long
Kacie.
After, Yeah, she's like, hell no, you're haunted.
Yep.
Bye.
Straight up.
Yeah, so not long after that, our poster moved schools and they never spoke or saw each other again.
Oh, well, that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean,
you know, it
I don't blame
happens with
Kacie.
childhood friendships, and I don't blame her either. Like, that's terrifying. So she says, I don't know what it was I saw. It can't have been sleep paralysis. I was able to move and speak and everything, and it wasn't a dream because someone else saw it too. But years passed and she moved on with her life. I mean, what else is there to do? But the encounters weren't over. When her partner moved into her current home, he opened the curtains one night before bed, letting in the bright light of a full moon. She fell asleep first. Later that night, she woke up to her partner getting up and quickly shutting the curtains. When she asked him why, he told her he had a nightmare, that there was a tall, skinny, white man clinging to the roof like a spider and staring into the room.
No, how does this keep happening throughout her life in different places with different people? She's being haunted. Right? Like, this is nuts.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So it must have been a hallucination, he said. He had been up all night playing video games and figured that it was his mind playing tricks on him. But when he got up from the bed, he said that he saw the thing jump back up onto the roof. Our writer never told him, but his description exactly matched what she saw that first night as a child, even the position of the crawler hanging from the roof, staring into the window. I mean, everything lined up. But I mean, I can kind of understand why she wouldn't have wanted to tell him, because that's a lot to lay on to someone, right? Like, totally. I mean, I don't know how long they'd been together at that point, but like, oh, no, actually, you saw my nightmarish creature that's been haunting me my entire life.
Yeah,
like,
and I lost my childhood friend because of it.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So she now lives in a busy neighborhood, surrounded by houses. Nothing like the forested, isolated places where she had first seen this creature. But even now, she sometimes hears strange things. The sound of her partner's voice calling her from the next room when no one is home.
Oh my God, the mimicking!
Her mother's voice echoing through the house, the dogs barking at nothing, the security lights flickering on when the yard is empty. Quote, I don't know if those two things are related or not, she says, but I've heard similar happenings in crawler-related stories before. As we know.
We do. And I have chills everywhere. This is definitely the creepiest story of the bunch thus far. Like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for her. Like, what's so fascinating, because in my mind, I want to like go to the theory of that she has like this negative thought form that's following her around.
The tulpa.
Yes, exactly. But then it's like, how are other people encountering it? Like her friend.
They're seeing
and then
it
her
like it's actually real.
Yes, exactly. So that's where I'm like, that doesn't check out, because they saw it before she did in those instances. So
I mean, the idea of a tulpa is that it actually is manifested into reality, into a physical form. So other people could see it.
So it could still be that.
Yeah. I mean, according to that theory, although of course it's a very pseudoscientific theory. I mean, all of this is, right?
Yeah, but
we don't know. There's no good explanation.
Think that it would explain it. Like, especially like her moving 16 hours away.
And then seeing, I know it almost feels like it has to be supernatural, because if it's just like a creature living in the woods, like, is it going to follow her that entire way? That would be insane.
That's nuts.
So
it feels supernatural to me, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone over all of these different theories, you know, earlier in the series about what these things might be. And this story, again, to me is leaning towards supernatural, not just an animal living in the forest. Like, that just doesn't fit here.
Totally.
So once again, yeah, and then the mimicking, like, I don't know, it's terrifying. So she finishes her story with a quiet admission. I don't know if I've seen a crawler or something else, or if I've seen anything at all. But at least now I know there are people out there who've seen things similar to me. Okay, so the story is particularly scary because if true, it implies the creature has a strange intelligence and attraction to this woman. As we've said, like, it's followed her around her entire life.
I mean, this crawler is very persistent. Like, why are you so obsessed with me?
Yeah, another crawler Hallmark movie.
Yes.
It's giving Edward watching Bella sleep in Twilight.
Yes, if he wanted to, he would.
Oh my God. Okay. All right, so this story does kind of remind me of other stories we've shared that give this consistent theme of once you see a crawler once, you're much more likely to see one again. I mean, we've seen this a lot, right? A lot of these stories have recurring events where the writer sees a crawler and then they see it again and again and again, like terrifying. So again, going back to the first sentence of this episode of maybe this story of mimics doesn't end here. Maybe it begins with you. We're talking about crawlers. Maybe even listening to this, you're more likely to see one. I don't know. I mean, if it's a tulpa, that would certainly make sense.
Maybe there's crawlers listening to this episode right now.
I'd like to think that crawlers would be a fan of our podcast. I mean, I feel like I've shared that in like a pretty good light here, right? I mean, we haven't demonized them too much. I feel like we've been fair to the crawlers. Like maybe they're not out for blood. Maybe they just want to be friends. Maybe they're just in love, right?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they're just misunderstood, you know?
Totally possible.
Like, I'm an outcast. I get it.
Oh, shut up. You're not an outcast. Wow. Overall, North America remains the most popular spot for crawler sightings. Australia has made a dent in its own right. Now, this next story, its memory, still makes the man who lived it cry when he talks about it, even many years later. It's a story that takes place in Bhutan, one of the most isolated and ancient countries on Earth, tucked high up in the Himalayas, where the Western world has barely left a fingerprint. And after you hear what happened, you'll understand why some places are perhaps better left undisturbed. This storyteller was just 15 years old when it happened, traveling with the school group. They were in a village called Bumthang, which of course he points out is a very funny name. But nothing about what happened here would be funny. Most of their group was asleep in a little hotel tucked between the forest and the mountains. But a few of the students, including him and his friend, got invited on a little secret adventure. A late night trip into town with some local guides. And like any reckless teenagers, they said yes. I totally would have been there. I would have been like, where's the alcohol?
Same.
Let's go meet some girls. Like,
I get it. Oh, a side quest? Like 1000%. I'm going.
Yes. So they ended up in a drinking spot, met some local girls. And after hanging out for a while, the girls asked if the guys could walk them home. Seemed innocent enough, easy, right? But they didn't realize that home meant a 4-mile hike each way, up and down a mountain. So they kind of signed themselves up for something here, like a little crazy.
Yeah.
But the night was cold and clear, and the hills of Bhutan rose like dark giants all around them. The moon was waxing, throwing a blue glow over everything, and the woods pressed thick and dark at the edges of the winding path. At one point, the girls pointed out a shortcut through the trees. They told the boys that because they had received blessings from the local monks, the girls had, we would be protected walking through the woods. But, and this was important, they warned them, only on the way up and only with the girls. When you come back, they said, take the long way home. The woods are haunted. The boys laughed it off, just old superstitions. And honestly, the walk up was uneventful. No shadows in the trees, no strange sounds, just perfectly normal group of kids walking home through the forest. So, after dropping the girls off at a botanical observatory near the peak, the two boys turned to make their way back. They were both athletes, strong, cocky, the kind of teenagers who didn't spook easily. His friend was particularly confident and stocky, strong, a lacrosse player, tough as nails. And the storyteller himself, he wasn't scared either. Not really, he recalls. They hyped each other up, laughing about how silly the girls' warnings had been. When they reached the trailhead, he hesitated though. He remembered what the girls had said and thought that maybe they shouldn't be taking the shortcut, just in case.
I mean, yeah.
As we know, shortcuts, right? Shortcuts.
Yeah, like what? Like I feel like we've been over this so many times in different stories where it's like people ignore the like your Old West story and the cannibalism.
Yes.
Like that's what this is giving. It's like, why don't people just listen?
People just, shortcuts are so attractive just on a human level, I feel like, right? Just like getting somewhere easier, taking the short route, saving time, saving energy. Like it's just like, it's irresistible, I think. So when people warn you against it, you really want to believe that that's just fake news, right? Like you just want to go anyway. So I think especially when someone says something is haunted, as Americans, I feel like a lot of people really roll their eyes at that sort of thing in general. So they might think like, okay, local superstition, like, is it haunted? Like, we're fine, right? So I feel like it'd be easy to talk yourselves out of that. And when this kid, the writer, says that he was kind of talking himself out of going the shortcut because it was scaring him, the friend actually teased him and gave him a hard time. So
typical.
Yeah, exactly. His friend teased him, calling him a scaredy cat, and not wanting to look weak, he pushed forward and said that he would lead the way. They entered the forest. The trees were massive, towering overhead, their branches knitting together to blot out the moonlight. The air was colder here, heavier, and somehow it just felt different. Smaller, claustrophobic. Still, they walked, laughing and shoving each other, trying to pretend they weren't just a little bit on edge. His friend even tried to jump scare him a few times, lunging at him from the shadows.
Oh, God.
I know.
Me.
Boys, right? They kept on moving, 20 minutes or so until they came to a clearing. And that's when everything got weird. At first, it was just little strange lights, faint, bobbing between the trees at the edges of the clearing. Not fireflies, not lanterns, they said, something else. And then, across the clearing, standing motionless in the blue wash of moonlight, was a figure. It was naked. It stood about 5 feet tall.
Was it hung?
He didn't specify.
Okay, but only 5 foot tall, so this is a shorter
Yeah, this
crawler.
one's a short one. Yeah, it's a short crawler.
Maybe it was a baby crawler.
Baby crawler?
Baby crawler? Baby like to crawl?
Okay, so it was completely hairless. Its skin was a sickly gray, and its eyes, God, the eyes, they glowed softly with yellow light. He froze. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. He said he was petrified by what he was seeing and unsure if he could trust his eyes. Behind him, his friend peeked over his shoulder and whispered, "What the f*** is that?" And almost like the thing had heard him, it moved. Instantly, it dropped onto all fours, snarling.
Ooh.
And then, somehow even more unnerving, it walked backward.
Oh my God. Ew. Ew.
It didn't just back away. It crab walked backward like a spider, fast and wrong, straight toward a thick tree trunk at the far end of the clearing.
God.
Without missing a beat, it crawled backward up the tree and onto a branch that stretched over the path. So it was just sitting there now in this branch, crouched like some kind of demonic gargoyle, looking down at them. At this point, his friend bolted. He ran straight into the woods, right under the branch where the creature was perched, onto the trail, and just disappeared. And
what
suddenly,
a good friend. Just ditching the other one.
Just ditched him. Yeah, after he pressured him to go through the woods in the first place, of course, right? Typical.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So suddenly, he was alone, frozen in place with no backup, and that thing still watching him. He said, "I began to pray the Hail Mary and the Our Father and every other prayer I knew. But the creature didn't move. It just stared. He got a good long look at it, much longer than he wanted. It was grotesque," he said. A pot belly hanging from an otherwise emaciated body.
What?
Teeth yellow and snarled. Saliva
Oh my God.
dripping onto the path below.
Ew. This is the freakiest description that we've heard thus far. Like, what? Ew.
Yeah. So he recalls that it looked exactly like something out of Asian folklore called a hungry ghost. You may remember this from our episode on folklore.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll have a picture appearing right now showing you what this is. So he knew he had no choice. He had to go under it to get to the other side of the clearing and continue on the trail back to where they were staying. Slowly and carefully, he stepped forward, keeping his eyes locked on the yellow glowing eyes above. He could see the spit dripping from its mouth, shining wet in the moonlight, splattering the dirt path at his feet, which is just such an unnerving image in my mind. Just so gross.
Oh my God. I'm trying to think of a defense. Like, did he have like a weapon on him?
No, they were just walking girls home from the bar. They had nothing. They're 15, remember?
Oh, that's right. He's 15.
Yeah, and they're in another country.
So this creature, the spit, like, I'm like, what could he have done? I'm like, he could have peed on it.
Man, the only thing I can think is just turn and run the other way, but then you're just going back the way you came through more forest. Like, I feel like you just have to go under it and do what he did.
So
I don't know.
Which direction did his friend bolt again?
Towards where they were staying. So he just ran under the thing in the tree and just got out of there. Like he could have, he risked it jumping on him, I guess, just to get away. Whereas our writer is just stuck in the clearing, just staring at it, afraid to walk under it where his friend went. So he slowly walked forward and stepped around it, never taking his eyes off of it. Heart pounding so hard that he thought he might pass out. At any second, he expected it to leap down and try to tear him apart. But it didn't. It just watched him. He edged away, walking backwards towards the trees, putting as much distance as he could between himself and that thing. And when the clearing was finally out of sight, he ran. But the night wasn't done with him yet. As he barreled through the woods, a pack of wild dogs came after him suddenly, snapping and snarling. He fought them off, throwing stones, half blind with fear. But he said, quote, "My fear of the dogs was far outweighed by my fear of the night, and my fear of the creature, whose name I will never know, but whose face I will never forget." Years later, he reached out to his friend to confirm what they had seen. And his friend, he remembered it all. Every horrifying detail. But he said that he had never spoken of it again up until that point. Some things you just don't bring into the daylight. Our storyteller finished by saying, quote, "It left a sliver of doubt in me that whatever we consider to be this concrete reality is probably not so concrete. Science does not know everything. As I wrote this story, bone-chilling fear took hold of me, and the same familiar tears of true horror began streaming down my face." So, if you ever find yourself staring into the woods at night, tempted by a shortcut just a little ways through the trees, maybe just take the long way.
Yes, guys, there are no shortcuts in life, and taking the long way home is the beautiful way.
Kacie, I have to ask you, do you think this could be like a Asian species of crawler or something? Since I know it's described being different, shorter, which is weird because it would also go with Asian people being generally shorter than like Westerners, Caucasians generally. And so the crawler is shorter too. Like, so weird, right?
That's such an interesting way of like looking at it because yeah, all of the other ones were described to be like 8 foot
super tall.
Yeah. So I wonder, like,
I have no idea.
I also
Super
wonder
weird.
if it was like an adolescent crawler or something. But then like the potbelly situation is interesting too. Like,
yeah, well, and the crazy thing is hungry ghosts are known to have a potbelly. Like, you know how when people, this is horrible, but when they're starving, they develop a potbelly,
Yes.
right? And it's absolutely awful to see, but this is kind of what this is based off of, this idea. Hungry ghost is the lore.
terrifying.
So after all the stories I've told you in this series, I think you have a pretty good idea of what running into a crawler might be like. Often these tales involve mimicking. Sometimes they do not, and instead involve strange growls or chittering or human-like screams. Often the creature is pale, but sometimes it's a darker gray color. The eye colors vary, sometimes black and hollow, sometimes yellow or red or even gray. Sometimes it looks like it's totally physical, while other times it seems like it's see-through or from another realm, phasing in and out of this reality. It's so hard to imagine what these differences and similarities could mean. Are there different species of crawlers? Are some of them physical while others are supernatural? Are they all hallucinations or tall tales, and none of this is real at all? What do you think, Kacie?
I mean, I definitely think it's real. Like, I think there's been way too many stories and way too many encounters for this to be totally made up. But I do tend to think it's supernatural versus like some animal of some sort.
Definitely.
What do you think?
I agree. We always have to take every internet story with a grain of salt. But assuming
Yes.
that most of these, at least, aren't lies, that they aren't made up, that they are actually a real experience that someone had, I believe it's definitely supernatural. I don't think that it is just an animal, a cryptid living in the woods that nobody has found evidence of yet, because that just doesn't make sense to me with these stories. And I can't say for sure if I think that there aren't different species of crawler, or if maybe some of them are different phenomena entirely. You know, I mean, we've had stories of the pale crawlers, and we've also had stories of the darker crawlers that looked like they were not even in this reality. And those to me seem pretty different, you know? So possible that it's not actually the same phenomenon or entity at all, whatever it is. I mean, we have to keep that open. I wanted to cover in this series not just crawlers, obviously, but all kinds of mimics and doppelgangers and strange creatures that we don't know what they are. I mean, we don't know what any of this is truly. So I don't know. I agree. It's not just an animal that's hiding in the woods. I think that there's something definitely paranormal going on here.
And I also think some of the crawler stories could possibly have been aliens.
Yes. Okay. So did you notice something about the last story?
Which part?
The lights.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that part. Yeah.
The lights. I mean, people often have described seeing strange lights in conjunction with crawler experiences. Also, the time dilation. I didn't even share a bunch of stories that I found about crawlers having to do with time dilation. I mean, there's just too many to pack into this series. It'd have to be a 100-part series, but it's definitely a common reported thing with crawler encounters, and also, of course, alien abduction or encounter stories, whether you believe them or not. But the similarities are weird. Electronics malfunctioning, lights in the sky, the time dilation, the strange look of the beings. I mean, they sound so similar to aliens. So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely something there. I don't know what it is. It's hard to categorize all of these. And I mean, you could spend a lifetime trying to research people's experiences, but I still don't know if you'd end up with any real answers. So
Totally.
I guess we'll leave it here, but crazy. I mean, I hope you enjoyed these stories as much as I did.
I mean, I know I did. I have been terrified with these stories, and they are so much fun to think about. And maybe we'll encounter a crawler in a couple weeks.
Okay, so as we know by now, not all of these encounters just feel like the same phenomenon, as we were just saying. Let's rewind for a minute to our first episode in the series, the doppelgangers, the mimics in our homes. The voices calling from upstairs when you know no one is there. The sight of a loved one who's sitting next to you, while simultaneously appearing at the end of the hall. These apparitions feel precise. They appear in your most personal spaces, bedrooms, hallways, mirrors. They wear the faces of your family, of you. They mimic with terrifying accuracy, and then they vanish like they were never there in the first place. What did they want? Or were they even conscious enough to want something at all? I'm not sure we'll ever know. But those mimics, to me, they don't feel like monsters. They feel like glitches. A glitch in the matrix. A brief overlap between parallel dimensions or timelines. A moment where two versions of the world collide. Maybe they're a time slip, a ghost of the future, a fragment of another self. These encounters don't always feel malevolent. Sometimes they're just wrong. But then there are the other ones, the outdoor ones, in the woods, in the mountains, along forgotten trails where the trees are too quiet and the shadows move when they shouldn't. These aren't glitches. They feel like predators. Your mother's voice calling you from deep in the pines. Your baby's cry echoing up from the river. These don't feel like echoes of other timelines. They feel tactical, threatening, and those who witness them believe that they are intelligent. That's where crawlers come in. Across this series, we've looked at creatures that seem to exist just outside the bounds of what is natural. Skinwalkers in the Southwest, malevolent shapeshifters from Navajo legends. Wendigos, pale, emaciated spirits of insatiable hunger from the Algonquin. Stickmen, shadowy, silent watchers from the oldest corners of the Appalachian and Cherokee lore. And many more. All of them are predatory. All of them mimic, and now in the age of the internet, a new name has emerged for something that feels similar, the crawler. As we know, most people believe that crawlers are just a digital myth, an internet-born monster that exploded alongside creepypasta forums, The Rake, and horror movies like The Descent. But here's what else exploded in the early 2000s. Access. For the first time in history, everyday people had the power to anonymously publish their personal stories and experiences. Stories that would have been dismissed as madness could be instantly shared with millions. And guess what? The stories that people told, separated by thousands of miles with no shared folklore, were eerily similar and consistent. A pale creature crouched by the roadside over roadkill. A voice calling you by name from the woods. Something tall and silent watching from the tree line. A flash of white flesh bolting across a rural highway. These aren't just isolated tales. These are hundreds, thousands. And sure, I cherry-picked the ones for this series that sent the most chills down my spine. But trust me, there are so freaking many, and it was so hard to choose. Unless everyone is lying or hallucinating the exact same thing, something real is going on. And I'm sure some of it is explainable. Some crawlers might be bears with mange, or sick coyotes moving strangely in the dark. Some could be incredibly malnourished or drug-addicted humans. I'm sure that some are copycat storytellers, spinning tales for karma and clicks. I'm not discounting it, and I'm not here to convince you that crawlers are definitely real. But I will say this, these stories did not start online. The internet didn't create the crawler, it just gave it a platform. So what are we dealing with? Is it a monster, a spirit, an echo of something older? A being that mimics to feed or to lure? Or are we dealing with multiple things? Some glitch, some predator, and some just projections of our own primal fear of being hunted in the dark. Of course, I can't answer that, and maybe that's the most real and honest conclusion that we can give. I just know this. People are seeing them, hearing them, waking up in the middle of the night, staring into the trees and seeing something stare back. So I want to hear from you, our listener. Do you think crawlers exist? And do you think they're connected to the mimics inside our house, the doppelgangers? Or are they something else entirely? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell us on patreon.com/chillseeker and social media at @chillseekerpodcast on Instagram and @chillseekerpod on TikTok. Please, if you enjoyed this episode and want me to keep making them, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, rate 5 stars, whatever you can do on any platform. It means so much to us and gives me all the faith to keep going because I love doing this. I love sharing these stories. And like I said, I want to hear your stories. So don't be afraid to submit them to us in a DM, wherever is best for you. So stay tuned and stay safe. Thank you for listening to our 7th and final installment, for now, of our Crawler and Mimics series. Until next time, keep seeking chills.
And keep your curtains closed.
Yes.